True gods and false gods. How to tell the difference. I'm the Christian whistleblower, Jeffrey Daugherty. This is the gospel truth. And I'm here today to teach you, to show you, to instruct you, to inform you how to tell the difference between a true God and a false God. How to tell the difference between a true God and a false God. It's really not that difficult. Hello again, Sarah, and hello to all of you. I appreciate those of you that habitually watch this channel, and I've been encouraged many times to set a schedule, and I think I will today set a schedule of when I will actually do some live shows. It will not be, hello Ashley, an exhaustive schedule. I will do more than this, but I will set a schedule for live programming each day so you can know when to tune in. But today, I want to speak to you about how to tell the difference between a true God and a false God. And it's so difficult for us because in our society for 2,000 years, we have been trained by a false God. So everything that we believe about a God, everything, hello from Missouri, everything that we believe about gods has been turned completely on its head 180 degrees. What we think is true about a God is false about a God. What we think is false about a God is true about a God. And it's very sobering to think that, we in the West pride ourselves on being the most technologically advanced. We pride ourselves on being the most educated. We pride ourselves on being the smartest. We pride ourselves in being the cream of the crop, the best of the best. And yet, despite this ethnocentric egomania, we have been deceived for 2,000 years by a false God, and we have to humbly admit that we have been deceived, and we must learn how to unlearn what we have been taught so that we can begin to appropriate reality and truth. So we have to learn what's real, and we have to unlearn what is false. And in spite of all our advances, and in spite of all of our great technologies and knowledge, we have somehow allowed ourselves to fall victim to the greatest con job in the history of man. And I remember how it felt when I used to believe that we were right. And I would look at the people from the land of India and shake my head at how foolish they were. And I would look at the people from the Far East and shake my head at them and think how foolish they were. And I would look at the historic Scandinavians and think how foolish they were. And I would look at the American Indians and think how foolish they were. And then I don't remember when it was, but one day it hit me. Is everybody else wrong and we're the only ones right? Or is it just possible that we're wrong and everybody else is right? Well, when you begin to look at the teachings of the Christ, you learn about a true God. You learn about a real God. You learn about a whole God. And the teachings of the Christ show us what a real God is like, what a real God is about, and what a real God does and does not do. And the first thing you notice about the teachings of the Christ is that the Christ says that you do not have original sin. You have the spark of divinity within. So rule number one is a true God never uses guilt. A true God never places guilt upon people. A true God never places guilt upon people. A false God will always place guilt upon people. The Christ also said that we are to love others as we love ourselves. A false God will always have a system of divide and conquer. You are the best. Everyone else is not as good as you. Everyone else is lost. You're the only ones that are actually right. That is the hallmark of a false god. To try to bring guilt upon you and to try to bring guilt and division upon everybody but you. Now, a false god will also be a god based upon blood. Any god that's based upon blood is a false god. Another key to false gods, any god that requires worship is a false god. Any god that mandates worship is a false god. A true God does not require your worship. A true God doesn't even want your worship. And a true God certainly does not threaten you because you will not worship him or her. True gods are not wrathful, vengeful, or jealous. False gods are wrathful. False gods are vengeful. False gods are jealous. False gods rule through fear. False gods want you to believe that they're watching every single thing you do and are combing through it with a fine-tooth comb and are ready to throw down a lightning bolt whenever you do wrong. The fact is, folks, real gods are somewhat indifferent to what you and I do every day. Real gods are somewhat indifferent to what you and I do all day, every day. Many of you have written me and said, Jeff, how do I know who to worship? Jeff, how do I know who to follow? Jeff, how do I know what to do? Jeff, how come the Elohim don't take care of the Lord? Jeff, how come the Elohim let this happen? How come the Elohim let that happen? Because they're real gods, and because they created us, and they placed us into an arena where we would learn to grow and develop. And the reason why the Elohim haven't done anything about the Lord is because they're waiting for you and I to. They're waiting for us to grow up. They're waiting for us to show up. They're waiting for us to take care of the rat bastard. They're waiting for us to enforce the laws of universal justice upon him. And they don't really care too much what you do on a day-to-day basis, again, because they're not there to babysit you. They're not there to feed you strained pears with a spoon. If any of you have had children, you know that you have to let those children go. You have to let those children grow. You have to let those children make their own decisions and make their own choices. You cannot babysit them their entire lives. And some of you, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old, asking me why? I'm asking you why. Why haven't you grown up? Why haven't you realized that the gods are not your parents and you are not babies? I know why. It's because you've been spoon-fed since you were a baby, that there's this God that sees you when you're sleeping, knows when you are awake, knows if you've been bad or good, so be good for goodness sake. You've been serving this God that's making a list, checking it twice, finding out who's naughty and nice. You've been serving this God that has this book, and every time you do something wrong, he puts a big black X. You've been serving this God that watches you, and every time you get out of line, he throws down a lightning bolt. All of that is the personification of a false God. Let me give you an example of true gods. Here's an example of true gods. I've been doing a lot of study about the gods of India, the gods of Hindu theology, Vedic theology. And there's 27 constellations that they deal with, and there are individual gods within that manifest and make themselves known within those constellations. But the one thing about the Vedic gods is they are who they are, and they do what they do, and they do it irrespective of what you do or what I do. They're not there asking for you to worship them. They're not there demanding that you worship them. They are not there threatening reciprocity or judgment should you choose to or not choose to. They are there to do what they do. They are there to put into practice what they've always put into practice. They are there to fulfill their functions and do their deeds. And your life is in part determined by how you relate to what they have set in motion. They are gods. You are living right now under, so to speak, the way the gods have set things up. So there are times where some of those gods are going to be in a place that is not harmonious to you in a particular stage of your life. It doesn't mean that they're throwing judgment on you. It doesn't mean that they're getting ready to throw thunderbolts at you. It doesn't mean they're punishing you. It just means that where you are, particularly in your period of life, is not particularly conducive to where they are. It's just the way it is. It's not judgment. It's not punishment. It just is the way that it is. Now, do they say you have to worship us? No, but they do offer certain mantras and procedures that you can do if you find yourself in a disharmonious place with the God. There's no judgment. There's no punishment. There's no wrath. There's no anger. It's just, hey, I'm a God. This is what I do. And right now, you're in a place that's not particularly harmonious with what I do. So if you want to just tough it out, great. If you'd like to make it smoother, here's some procedures you can follow. And the gods of the Tao are very similar. The gods of the Far East are very similar. The gods of the American Indians are very similar. Gods do what they do. Gods are beings. I mean, for all intents and purposes, gods are very much like we are. They do what they do. And when we come into a place that's not quite in harmonious alignment with them, we can either just tough it out, or we can alter our actions, and we can do certain activities to help bring us into alignment, or to help soften the rough road that we might have to go through sometimes. But true gods are not there watching everything you do. True gods are rather indifferent to what you do. And true gods aren't causing pain and discomfort and punishment and judgment. You just happen to go through a rough patch regarding what they always do and what they did before you and what they'll do after you. So this whole idea of punishment and reward and bad and good and love and hate, it's a false paradigm that we've fallen victim to in the West for 2,000 years. False gods require worship. False gods deal with blood. False gods punish. False gods reward. False gods want you kneeling to them, bowing to them, praising them. Real gods don't care what you do because they know they're gods, and they don't need you to confirm their godness to them. They are gods because they are gods, and not because you are doing anything in particular to aid them. Now, as Wayne Steiger and I talked about on Sunday, there are some other gods that are thought forms. They're not real gods. They're just projections of our thoughts. And as we stop worshiping them, they die. They just go away because there's no more energy. But a true God is rather indifferent to you. A true God doesn't punish you. A true God doesn't want your worship. A true God doesn't want your praise. A true God doesn't differentiate between people. And a true God certainly doesn't pick on anybody. So if you are worshiping a God that you're afraid of, you're worshiping a false God. If you're worshiping a God that is bringing judgment upon you, you're worshiping a false God. If you're worshiping a God that you think is bringing down rewards to you, you're worshiping a false God. True gods do not deal in such things. Only false gods. So, Jeff, what are you trying to tell me? You sound like an atheist that there's not any gods. No, there are gods. There are real gods. There are real goddesses. And there are false gods and there are false goddesses. But until you wake up and realize that your place is not to worship or serve any of them, but your place is to grow and develop and to become one of them, when you realize that, then you are on the true path to spiritual growth, to spiritual development, and to spiritual freedom. The Christ said all of these things. Of course, in the 2,000 years since that, Jesus has just about undone everything that the Christ did do. That's why it's time to unindoctrinate yourself. That's why it's time to learn the true message of the Christ. That's why it's time for the gospel truth. And that's why it's time for the Christian whistleblower. This is just an easy little way to learn how to tell a true God from a false God. Well, Jeff, we've been worshiping a false God our whole life. Yes, we have. And how much longer we do it depends upon us. No one can really deceive you but you. And no one can certainly keep you deceived except for you. Well, let's take a look in the chat room and see what we have. The West is spiritually dead for the most part. I agree. Well, I don't know if Jeff will wipe your slate clean, but he'll certainly help you do so. What kind of God asks you to beg? A false God. Good observation, Dylan. It is back-assward. Are you downloading my brain? No. Yes, continue to rebuke Hurricane Maria. What are you drinking? I'm drinking some tea. We do need to look within. We need to do it ourselves. No one else is coming. And that's another sign of a false God. A false God says that he's coming back to save you, or she's coming back to save you. There's no God coming to save you. We have to save ourselves. Find the God inside of you. A+ to Tim Holderman. God is inside. It is Santa, but it's the same thing as God. Sophia. When the gods are going to do something, T. Whitten asked the gods when they're going to do something, and he said they did. We sent you. That's right. We're here. You're waiting for the cavalry to come over the hill? We're the cavalry. They said, get her done. Let's bust some ass and get it done. Absolutely. Glad I found Jeff when I did. Made it on my own to Yahweh. And just as I was learning Yahweh and said Jesus, boom, I learned that it was the rat bastard. Glad I didn't continue to go down that path. Me too. We don't have gods, only spirits or beings, just one creator. Okay. Feed my spirit. Well, we're doing everything we can. Only you can really feed your spirit. When we were forced to go, when we were forced to sit through the church, we never went. We skipped over to the diner and played ping pong. You got more at the diner than you would have got inside the church. The pews have been built and built-in prayer benches. God doesn't need your help. We're getting unindoctrinated. A little truth in my childhood would have been real nice. Yes, it would have been. I just want to show you that I write. Okay. Just remember empathy, our most valuable tool. Okay. Scott Clark is there. What do you mean he's there? Great stuff. Thank you. A true God would understand your small position and its circumstances and would see past your small reactions and behaviors and wait for you to learn the lesson. That's true. The rat bastard took my son and I want him back. You'll get him back. Yahweh is not the father of the Christ. That's for sure. God does not need your money. He doesn't. She doesn't. But some of us that are trying to do their work could use some of it to continue to spread this work, but we're not going to get into that. So I'm the Christian whistleblower. That's the gospel truth about how to tell a true God from a false God. And just remember, it's very, very simple. Any God that wants you to worship him or her is a false God. Any God that needs you to, what kind of an egotistical being needs your worship? Not a true God. Any God that threatens reward or punishment, not a true God. Any God that demands blood or sacrifice, not a true God. Any God that puts down some people and lifts up other people, not a true God. Any God that encourages you to depend on it, not a true God. Any God that says he or she is coming back to save you, not a true God. Any God that's up into all your business 24/7, 365, not a true God. Now, that's a tough transition for some of you because you're used to thinking that every time you mutter something or every time you stub your toe, that God is listening. God's not listening. God made you and put you in a place for you to learn and grow and develop. And unless the circumstances are extraordinary, they're probably not going to be intervening with you and listening to you and looking for you. Now, when you learn to grow and direct your intention and grow and direct and use the power that they've given you and start to develop it, then you'll start getting some attention. But you have to grow up. True spirituality is for grown-ass men and grown-ass women. No babies need apply. Want to get in touch with the true gods? Want to get the attention of the true gods? Want to interact with the true gods? Then become a spiritual badass yourself, and you will, and you won't until. Do what you do. Grow your spirit, grow yourself, grow your ascension, and don't worry about anybody else except for helping them if you can. And just recognize these few things about the true God. All right, what does this say? The new age of artificial intelligence. I would love to get our material translated into other languages, starting with Spanish. Absolutely. All right, folks, I'm glad you found this channel too. Hello from the UK. All right. We are here to manifest our, this is the truth, who's going to be birthed in 923, and it will show who is Yahweh, the false pretender, the creator of the universe. He is the false pretender. I'm not sure what that means. I'm going to take that out because I'm not sure what that's saying. All righty then. This is how you tell a false God from a true God. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower. This has been the gospel truth about how to tell a true God from a false God. We will be back with more today, and I will be back with a schedule that will tell you on a daily basis when I'll be doing live shows so you can avail yourself of them. Until then, I salute those of you that are seeking for truth. I remind you, there's no sin within, but the spark of divinity is within. Love yourself, love your neighbor, be excellent to each other, make the change that you want to see. Make it. Don't wait for your ship to come in. Swim out and meet it. Don't wait for somebody to come back to save you. Save yourself. Make the change you want to be, and stay fearless, my friends.